Hello, my friends. I hope you're all having an outstanding, fabulous day. And welcome back to Frantic TV's Answers with Bruce. And I'm Bruce. Today, we're diving into a topic that's creating quite a stir, quite a buzz on the streets of New York City. As some of you may have heard, jaywalking recently became legal in New York City. For I don't know how many decades, it was not legal to jaywalk, and a person who jaywalked could get up to a $250 fine. Now, pedestrians can cross anywhere they want on the streets without any fear of retribution from law enforcement. That's right. After all those decades of being forced to cross crosswalks and intersections and pressing the button, now that's all gone. Pedestrians can do what they want to get where they want. Now, this change actually sparked a question from our show's producer, Felix, and he sent it to me to discuss on today's show. And Felix's question is this: now that jaywalking is legal, what's going to happen if I'm riding my e-bike and someone just steps right out in front of me? Who would be at fault in that situation? That is an incredible question. And New York City is one of the meccas of e-bike and electric mobility riders. So I am pretty sure that many people who ride e-bikes and other electric mobility devices in New York City want to know the answer to that. And so the answer is very, very, very simple. And the answer is this: it all depends. And I say that because first, let's really talk about what the law changes. So the law, by legalizing jaywalking, New York City wants to reduce the number of minor citations, wants to allow police to focus on bigger crimes instead of something that is a harmless error, so to speak. So you save police resources, you save government resources, and equally, if not more importantly, people are now given more freedom to cross the street wherever they feel. And we all know, or should know, New York City has thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pedestrians that are walking the sidewalks and crossing the streets every day. So, the issue is, just because jaywalking is now legal, that doesn't mean that pedestrians are suddenly exempt from responsibility when it comes to accidents. Pedestrians and e-bike riders and all users of the streets and sidewalks, they still have a duty of care. And that is essentially a legal responsibility to act with caution and to avoid reckless behavior. Even before the repeal of this law, many pedestrians were under the mistaken impression that that crosswalk gave them some kind of super protection from liability and from being injured from automobiles or any kind of traffic. For example, some pedestrians think that they can just walk into that crosswalk and all traffic must immediately stop. Kind of true, but not kind of true. Why? If a car is traveling 30 miles an hour and they are only a few feet from that crosswalk, and that pedestrian walks into that crosswalk and gets crushed by that automobile driver is not going to be at fault, because it would be impossible for that automobile driver to stop and not hit anybody in that crosswalk in that short a distance. So even in that circumstance, that pedestrian had a duty of care. That pedestrian had a responsibility to pay attention to what was coming down the street before they stepped into that crosswalk. That crosswalk is not some super protection from liability and harm. And that carries over to the repeal of the jaywalking law. The pedestrian still has a duty and a responsibility to pay attention. That pedestrian still has a duty and responsibility to look up and down the street before they step off that curb. So let's say you're riding your e-bike and a pedestrian just steps right off the curb and right into your path without checking their surroundings, and there's an accident. Determining who is at fault, it's going to depend on the specifics of the incidents, but here's how fault could be assigned. If the pedestrian acted carelessly and did not pay attention and was not looking and disrupted the normal flow of traffic, they could easily be at fault or possibly partly at fault for the accident. So even though they're allowed to jaywalk, they still must pay attention. Now, let's assume that the e-bike rider was reckless or distracted, because the e-bike rider or the electric scooter rider or the one wheel or the unicycle also has a duty to pay attention to what they're doing and to look ahead and look at their surroundings as they're traveling down the road. So if the e-biker was speeding or acting careless or reckless in some manner, then the e-biker could be responsible either in whole or in part for the resultant accidents and damages therefrom. It's a shared responsibility. New York operates under a legal principle called comparative negligence. Comparative negligence, what does that mean? That means that both parties could share some responsibility in the resulting accident. For example, if the pedestrian is 80% responsible and the e-biker is 20% responsible, that's how the law would split up any kind of damages. If the e-biker was 50% and the pedestrian was 50%, they both would share in responsibility for any resulting damages. And what do I mean by damages? Could be property damage. If the bike was destroyed and the bike was a $2,000 bike and the e-biker was 50% responsible, then that pedestrian is only liable for $1,000. And it would work the same way if there was any kind of physical injury as well. So Felix, that is your answer. It's a case-by-case situation. It all depends on the facts. Nothing in life is clear-cut, and this is even less than clear-cut. So just because jaywalking is now legal, it does not give the pedestrians the freedom to ignore everything around them and just step off the curb. Both pedestrians and e-bikers and other users of the road have a responsibility to stay vigilant and be cognizant of their surroundings and exercise a duty of care for their fellow citizen. And remember, legal or not, reckless behavior on either side can lead to serious consequences. This is the bottom line for both parties. For e-bike riders, it's essential to stay aware of your surroundings, to pay attention, to not ride distracted, and to look ahead so you don't hit or strike a pedestrian. And pedestrians, you have the same duty that you've always had, which is look both ways and pay attention before you step off that curb. It was the same way before the repeal of the jaywalking law, and it's the same way now. The key takeaway here is that even though jaywalking is now legal, safety is a shared responsibility. Pedestrians and e-bikers need to work together to keep the streets safe for everyone, and e-bikers and other electric mobility device users ride safe and be a good representative of the electric community. And thank you for Felix for sending in that question. If you have a question about legal issues, e-bikes, or just want to learn more about the New York City street laws, leave a comment, send them our way. Your question might be featured in our next episode. And thanks for tuning in to Frantic TV Answers with Bruce. And remember, ride safe, be smart, don't be stupid. Until next time, I love you all. See ya!